Okay, wow. Paris Saint-Germain. What did we just witness? This was one of those games that felt like a breaking point. Not for the title race, not for some grand arc of redemption. No, this was a breaking point in tone. The air in the stadium changed. You felt it. The kind of night where the ball looks bigger for one team and the pitch looks smaller for the other. The kind of night where even time seems to take sides. Paris Saint-Germain did not just beat Atletico Madrid. They humiliated them. And that's not a word I throw around like confetti. They dragged them through 96 minutes of embarrassment, with each goal feeling like a reveal of how little Atletico could do to stop the bleeding. 4-0. And if we're honest, if we're brave, it could have been worse. From the first whistle, you could tell PSG smelled something. Not just vulnerability, not just an off day from Atletico. They smelled weakness, not physical weakness either. Psychological. This wasn't about tactics. It wasn't even really about football. This was about one team arriving at a party they didn't want to leave, and the other showing up late with no invitation and mismatched socks. Let's talk about the first goal. Fabian Ruiz, 18th minute. Left foot, bottom right corner, and no hesitation. It came off like a statement of intent, almost like a formal letter of eviction addressed to Atletico's midfield. Assisted by Kvaratskhelia, who was basically playing the game like a kid in his backyard, dribbling around invisible defenders and laughing while doing it. You could see Oblak trying to rally the troops after that one, shouting and pointing, like a man trying to plug holes in a sinking ship with sticky notes. But you knew. You could just tell. The waves were coming. The second goal? Vitinha. 45th minute right before halftime, just to twist the knife. This is where PSG really started having fun. That was a counterattack straight from the Devil's playbook. Kvaratskhelia again involved, setting it up like a magician yanking a scarf out of a hat. Vitinha smashed it in with the calm of a man ordering coffee. 2-0. And the halftime whistle felt like mercy. But mercy is not in PSG's vocabulary. What followed was a cascade. Atletico came out for the second half looking like they'd seen a ghost. Maybe they had. Maybe the ghost of their own past solidity was haunting them, whispering things like compactness and low block and Simeone ball. Didn't matter. PSG smelled blood and went full shark. Then came Seni Mayulu. 86th minute. Goal. The kind of strike that doesn't ask questions. It answers them. It looked like he paused time, picked a spot, and whispered a lullaby to the ball as he slotted it in. And as if that wasn't enough, 96th minute. Penalty. Handball by Robin Lenormand. Probably the worst thing he did all night, and that's saying something. Kang-In steps up, bottom left corner. Oblak dives right. Game over. Parade begins. 4-0. You don't just beat Atletico Madrid 4-0. You don't just hold them down and erase their identity. This is a club built on suffering, on digging trenches, on wearing you down until your own fans are bored of watching you. This is a club that lives for chaos. But PSG didn't give them chaos. They gave them order. They gave them rhythm. They gave them football that sang. There was a brief moment just after halftime where you thought maybe, just maybe, Atletico Madrid would come out swinging. You know the kind of halftime talk Simeone gives? The voice gets low, the eyes burn holes, the whole team in a circle like they're about to go to war. You imagine chairs were kicked, things were said, ghosts of past battles were invoked, and yet the second half started like the first ended. Paris Saint-Germain with the ball, Paris Saint-Germain with the control, and Atletico Madrid with, well, a rapidly disintegrating reputation. It wasn't just that PSG were better, it was that they seemed to know they were better, and that knowledge is poison to a team like Atletico. The kind of poison that doesn't kill you quickly, it just sits in your veins, making your legs heavier, your passes sloppier, your decisions slower. Atletico looked like a team aging in real time. Now, there was a flicker. Minute 56. Julian Alvarez had the ball in the back of the net. Atletico had something. They even believed it, briefly. There were arms raised, sighs of relief, even a bit of defiance. And then came the silent assassin, the video assistant referee. VR check. Offside. No goal. Hope withdrawn like a cruel loan. You could feel the deflation not just from the players, but from the story of the game. That was it. That was the moment they could have clawed something back. Maybe rewritten the tone. But the football gods who had clearly thrown on PSG kits for the night said nope. From then on, it wasn't a contest. It was a procession. Atletico tried to claw, tried to foul, tried to grind PSG down with the usual dark arts. Cards started flying. Lenglet got himself a second yellow, because sure, if you're going to go down, you might as well leave your cleats in. It was like watching someone rip the batteries out of a toy because it was losing at Mario Kart. And then came the substitutions. Not the kind that change a game. This wasn't a game anymore. This was theater. PSG rotated the cast, but the script stayed the same. Mbaye comes on, Mayulu comes on, and oh, do they make an entrance? 86th minute. Mayulu, fed by Mbaye, slices one into the bottom corner like it's a training drill. Atletico's defenders just watched. Not frozen in place, just resigned. The football version of blinking at a fire alarm and going back to bed. And then, the cherry. The 96th minute penalty. A handball so blatant you half expected the referee to show Lenormand a PowerPoint about what not to do in a penalty box. Kang-In stepped up, no fuss, just finesse. Sent Oblak the wrong way, dropped the fourth goal like a closing signature on a love letter to dominance. When the final whistle blew, it wasn't relief, it was release. Like everyone had just finished watching a film that was too real, too raw. Because this wasn't just about goals. This was about a statement. And PSG made it, loud and clear. Let's talk about the teams, because this game wasn't just a lopsided scoreline. It was a mirror held up to both clubs, and what it reflected wasn't always flattering. Paris Saint-Germain. What do we even make of them after that? They've been accused for years of being all sizzle and no steak. The glitzy transfers, the superstar lineup posters, the Champions League meltdowns. But this was something different. This was a team that didn't just look good. They looked alive. United, hungry. There's always this question around PSG. Can they feel pain? Can they play with the kind of emotional depth that carries a team when the flash fades? And the answer tonight was yes. A wild, joyful, roaring yes. They played like a team that wanted to be together. Like players who weren't just employees at a footballing megacorporation, but actual human beings with shared purpose. Weird, I know. They were brave without being reckless. Expressive without losing structure, and they were devastating in transition, like one long counterattack that never stopped. Kvaratskhelia in particular seemed like he was playing an entirely different sport, part dancer, part illusionist. And then you look at Atletico Madrid. Where did they go? No, really, where did the soul of this team disappear to? Because this wasn't the snarling, gritty Atletico that breaks ankles and spirits in equal measure. This was a shell. A body moving through the motions of football without ever really believing it could affect the game. You can throw all the tactical setups you want onto the pitch, but if the players don't look like they trust each other, it all falls apart like wet cardboard. And tonight, it fell apart. There were flickers. Rodrigo de Paul tried. Griezmann had a couple moments. Koki did his shouting thing. But overall, Atletico were chasing shadows. The press didn't bite. The midfield didn't link, and the backline... Let's just say Jan Oblak probably felt like he was playing dodgeball with a blindfold on. But beyond tactics, beyond effort, this game screamed something deeper. One team was ready, the other wasn't. And readiness in football isn't just about training and match plans. It's emotional, psychological. PSG came in with intent, with rhythm, with a kind of swagger that only works if you back it up. And they did for 96 minutes. Atletico walked into the lion's den, wearing cologne made of fear and fatigue. Sometimes football is elegant. Sometimes it's chaotic. This was clinical. One team moved like they knew they were writing a headline. The other looked like they were hoping to be forgotten. And no matter how you dress that up, no matter how many interviews you give about character and learning lessons, it stings. Because when your opponent not only beats you, but enjoys it, that's a wound that lingers. This wasn't about league tables or knockout rounds. This was about who you are when it all falls away. And tonight, PSG were something scary. Atletico, they were something else entirely. Let's zoom in now. Strip it down to the individuals. Because games like this don't just make or break teams. They carve legacies into the playing the shirts. Let's start with Kvaratskhelia. There are games where you can see the fire in a player's boots. This was an inferno. Cutting angles, skipping past defenders like he was dribbling through ghosts. He was electric. 2 assists, but more than that, He was the mood. If PSG played jazz tonight, Kvaratskhelia was the trumpet solo wailing in the middle. Unpredictable and beautiful. Fabian Ruiz. Clinical. Calm. That first goal? A laser-guided missile dressed as a casual left-footed finish. But what stood out even more was his balance, that unhurried control in midfield, the ability to shift gears without looking like he's sweating, the kind of player who doesn't shout for attention, he just plays until the world has to look. Vitinha. My God, Vitinha. He was all over the pitch like a rumor, whispers here, echoes there, suddenly everywhere. That goal before halftime wasn't just a goal, it was punctuation. A full stop at the end of Atletico's first half hopes. And then we have Seni Mayulu, off the bench into the myth. The finish was cold, like he had a hit list and Oblak was next. But it was the movement, the link-up play with Mbaye that made him pop. You could see the hunger. You could feel the I want to prove something in every step. Kang-In, stepping up for the penalty like it was a chore he was almost bored with. That level of composure, that cool finish to the bottom corner, it was silk. A soft ending to a hard night. You don't always need drama. Sometimes you just need certainty. He delivered it like a closing statement in a trial that had already been decided. And speaking of composure, Gianluigi Donnarumma. He wasn't overly busy, because let's be honest, Atletico didn't bring a lot to his doorstep. But when called, he answered. That Griezmann save? Huge. Not flashy, not full-stretch Hollywood nonsense, just precise, effective, unbothered. Which brings us to Atletico's cast. Griezmann looked like a man trying to bail out a sinking ship with his bare hands. Still classy, still clever, but surrounded by panic and puddles. Rodrigo de Paul tried to spark something, but every fire he lit was drowned in PSG's midfield flood. Lenglet, 2 yellows, and the second one came with all the subtlety of a frustrated toddler. It summed up Atletico's night. Clumsy, careless, out of rhythm. Robin Lenormand's handball for the penalty? That's a defender who's mentally checked out, who just wants the lights to go out and the night to end. Even Oblak, usually the fortress, the stubborn last man standing, looked human. Beaten 4 times, and not once could you blame him. He looked around after each goal like a man wondering how his house got robbed while he was still inside it. This game made stars shine brighter. It made shadows darker. It reminded us, sometimes the players don't just play the game. Sometimes they are the game. And this has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.